Right now, the entire country of Czechia is holding its breath, and for good reason. Forget everything you thought you knew about the 2026 grass court tennis season. Forget the established hierarchies. Forget the ranking points. And forget the traditional European dominance on the surface. Because a 21-year-old from the Philippines has just ripped up the script, set on fire, and forced the entire sporting world to pay attention. If you told anyone 2 weeks ago that Alexandra Eala would be standing in the semifinals of the Berlin Tennis Open, leaving a trail of shattered Grand Slam champions and top-tier grass court specialists in her wake, you would have been laughed out of the room. Yet, here we are. We are witnessing what is undoubtedly the most shocking, electrifying, and downright terrifying Cinderella run in recent WTA history. The title of today's deep dive is not an exaggeration. The entire Czech tennis establishment is shaking in fear of Alexandra Eala right now, and she is locked, loaded, and completely ready to get her ultimate revenge against Linda Noskova in the semifinals later today. If you clicked on this video, you already know that something historic is unfolding at the Steffi Graf Stadion. But you might not realize just how massive the stakes of this specific matchup truly are. We are not just talking about a spot in a WTA 500 final. We are talking about psychological warfare. We are talking about redemption. And we are talking about a monumental clash of tennis cultures. On one side, you have Linda Noskova, the terrifying, ice-cold, heavy-hitting Czech prodigy who is playing the absolute best tennis of her young career, obliterating opponents in barely an hour. On the other side, you have the ultimate disruptor, Alexandra Eala, carrying the unprecedented momentum of 3 career-defining victories and the hopes of an entire nation on her shoulders. This is a collision course we did not know we needed. But now, it is the only match anyone can talk about. And the craziest part? Just a few months ago, Linda Noskova handed Alexandra Eala the most humiliating, soul-crushing defeat of her professional life. So the question that is burning in everyone's mind right now is this. Will history repeat itself in a brutal, one-sided Czech masterclass? Or is Alexandra Eala about to pull off the ultimate revenge mission and cement her legacy as the new giant slayer of women's tennis? Stick around, because we are about to break down every single angle, every hidden tactic, and every psychological secret behind the biggest grudge match of the year. To truly understand the absolute panic setting in within the Noskova camp right now, we have to meticulously retrace the path of total destruction Alexandra Eala has carved through the Berlin draw. This has not been a lucky run. There have been no walkovers. There have been no favorable matchups against fatigued opponents. This has been a merciless gauntlet of the highest order, and Eala has dismantled every single obstacle with a level of ruthlessness that we have never seen from her before. Let's start with round 1. Eala was drawn against Donna Vekic. For those who might not follow the intricacies of the grass court swing, Donna Vekic is an absolute nightmare on this surface. She has a massive flat forehand that cuts through the grass like a scythe, a lethal first serve, and a wealth of experience playing on the slick lawns of Europe. When that draw came out, the consensus was clear. Eala, as a wild card, would put up a good fight, but the sheer pace of Vekic would eventually overwhelm the Filipina. But Eala completely flipped the script. She stepped onto the court, absorbed the immense pace of Croatian, and turned it against her. Eala showcased court coverage that left the crowd speechless. She stayed incredibly low to the ground, which is the absolute golden rule of grass court tennis, and she frustrated Vekic into a string of unforced errors. Eala ousted the grass court veteran in straight sets. It was a massive statement, but the tennis world, stubbornly, still called a fluke. They said Vekic must have had an off day. Then came the second round, and the tennis world stopped making excuses. Waiting for Eala was none other than the second seed, the former Wimbledon champion, and arguably the most feared ball striker on the planet, Elena Rybakina. Playing Rybakina on grass is widely considered one of the most terrifying assignments in modern sports. You're staring down a serve that regularly clocks in the high 110s, effortless, booming power off both wings, and an ice-cold demeanor that simply does not crack under pressure. Most players step onto the court against Rybakina already feeling like they are down a set. But Alexandra Eala walked out there with a terrifying look of absolute conviction in her eyes. The Filipina executed a tactical masterclass that coaches around the world are going to be studying for years. She knew she could not go toe-to-toe with Rybakina in a battle of pure power, so she systematically dismantled the Kazakh's rhythm. Eala used her heavy, looping left-handed forehand to target Rybakina's movement, forcing the towering champion to hit awkward, off-balance shots on the run. But the true revelation was Eala's return to serve. She was reading the massive Rybakina delivery like it was in slow motion, neutralizing the pace, and instantly driving the ball deep into the court to steal the offensive position. When Eala secured that breathtaking straight-sets victory over the world number 2, the Steffi Graf Stadium erupted in absolute disbelief. Beating a Wimbledon champion on grass is the moment a player transitions from a promising prospect to a legitimate, undeniable threat to the entire tour. But if you thought the drama peaked there, the quarterfinals deliver a match that truly proved Eala's championship mentality. She faced the incredibly resilient, fiercely competitive 8th seed, Alina Svitolina. Svitolina is a former world number 3, a player renowned for her supreme athleticism, her unyielding defensive skills, and her absolute refusal to give up on a single point. This was a completely different puzzle for Eala to solve. Instead of facing overwhelming first-strike power, she was facing a human backboard. She was facing a veteran who makes her living by breaking down the physical and mental resolve of younger players. From a very first point, Eala refused to let Svitolina dictate the terms of engagement. Eala stepped aggressively inside the baseline, took the ball incredibly early on the rise, and denied Svitolina the time to settle into her trademark defensive rhythm. Eala secured an early break of serve and absolutely dominated the opening set, moving with the grace of a seasoned grass court specialist. But the second set is where the true test of character arrived. Eala was dominating. She found herself serving for the match at 5-2. This is the exact moment where the reality of what you are about to achieve hits you. The arm gets heavy, the mind starts racing, and the veteran opponent senses a hesitation. Svitolina suddenly raised her level, played with reckless abandonment, and broke Eala's serve. The Ukrainian then held her own serve to narrow the deficit to 5-4. Suddenly, the entire momentum of the match had violently shifted. The pressure was entirely on the young Filipina's shoulders. Svitolina surged, pushing the score to 0-30 on Eala's serve. Svitolina was 2 points away from leveling the set, 2 points away from dragging Eala into a grueling third set, where experience usually prevails. For a 21-year-old, this is a textbook scenario for a monumental collapse. But Alexandra Eala dug deep into a reservoir of mental strength that no one knew she had. Facing disaster, she won the next 4 points consecutively, sealing the monumental victory with an absolutely scorching backhand winner down the line. It was a shot of pure, unadulterated defiance. It confirmed that Alexandra Eala does not just possess the physical tools to win at the highest level. She possesses the clutch gene. So, she has vanquished Donna Vekic, she has dethroned Elena Rybakina, and she has out-hustled Alina Svitolina. Alexandra Eala is playing the absolute best tennis of her entire life. She is riding a wave of momentum that feels practically unstoppable, a wave fueled by adrenaline, exceptional form, and an unshakable belief in her own destiny. But now, she faces the ultimate roadblock. She faces the ghost of her very recent past. She faces Linda Noskova. To fully grasp why this upcoming semifinal is generating so much anxiety in the Czech Republic, we have to look incredibly closely at Linda Noskova and the terrifying, brutal brand of tennis she is unleashing on the tour right now. If Eala's run has been a story of tactical brilliance, massive upsets, and grueling mental battles, Noskova's run has been a story of cold, calculating, sheer brutality. The Czech 8th seed has barely broken a sweat to reach the Final Four. She kicked off her campaign by absolutely steamrolling Renata Zarazua. She followed that up by completely demolishing Diane Parry. But it was her quarterfinal performance that truly sent shivers down the spines of the rest of the locker room. Noskova faced the former world number 2, Paula Badosa. Many analysts expected Badosa, with her heavy baseline game and immense fighting spirit, to finally provide Noskova with a stern test. But Linda Noskova turned the quarterfinal into an absolute serving clinic and a baseline massacre. She destroyed Badosa in a mere 68 minutes. Let that sink in. 68 minutes against a former world number 2. It was a staggering display of flawless aggression. Noskova dished out a crushing 6-1 opening set without blinking. She fired massive aces, won over 70% of her first serve points, And when Badosa desperately managed to engineer breakpoint opportunities, Noskova slammed the door violently shut. Noskova saved all 7 breakpoints she faced with massive, unreturnable serves. She finished that match executing a clear, aggressive game plan from the very first ball, hitting clean winners at will. This is a quintessential, terrifying Czech grass court style. It is huge, it is flat, and it is entirely uncompromising. Noskova thrives on suffocating her opponents, taking all their time away. She loves to step aggressively inside the baseline, flatten out her strokes, and drive the ball through court with trajectory that stays incredibly low on the grass. When her serve is clicking the way it is this week, she is mathematically almost impossible to break. She gives you absolutely no rhythm. She gives you no long, comfortable rallies. She wants to hit a massive serve, get a short ball, and end the point immediately. It is first strike tennis executed to absolute perfection. And this brings us the most compelling, the most dramatic, and the most heavily scrutinized element of the semifinal matchup: the brutal history between these two athletes. This is not their first encounter. The head-to-head record heavily favors Linda Noskova, but it is their most recent clash that looms like a dark cloud over this upcoming match. Just a few months ago, at the incredibly prestigious Indian Wells tournament, often regarded as the 5th Grand Slam, Alexandra Eala and Linda Noskova squared off. Eala was coming in with high hopes, playing well on the hard courts. But what transpired on the gritty courts of the California desert was an absolute nightmare for the Filipina. Linda Noskova utterly dismantled Alexandra Eala. The scoreline was a brutal, embarrassing 6-2, 6-0. Eala could not find her footing. She looked completely lost, unable to handle Noskova's heavy, relentless baseline pressure. In that match, Noskova teed off on Eala's second serve with absolute impunity, treating it like target practice. It was a comprehensive, confidence-shattering defeat that sent Eala packing in under an hour. For any young professional, suffering a bagel set on such a massive global stage leaves deep, lingering psychological scars. It creates a mental block. It whispers doubts in your ear every time you see that specific opponent on the other side of the net. And that is precisely why the Czech fans are expecting Noskova to step out onto the Steffi Graf Stadium, replicate that Indian Wells performance, and blast Eala off the court once again to march into the final. On paper, based strictly on that recent encounter, Noskova is the overwhelming, undeniable favorite. She has the mental edge of having inflicted a devastating defeat. She has the stylistic advantage of a massive serve specifically tailored for a grass court, and she has barely spent any energy this week compared to Eala's grueling, high-intensity battles. But here is the massive reality check that is causing sleepless nights for Noskova's coaching team. Alexandra Eala today is absolutely not the same player she was in March. The evolution we have witnessed from Eala over the past 3 months, and specifically over the past week on this German grass, is nothing short of extraordinary. The player who was blown off the court in Indian Wells would not have survived the first set against Donna Vekic. She certainly would not have had the tactical nuance to outsmart Elena Rybakina. And she absolutely would not have possessed the mental fortitude to slam the door on Elena Svitolina in that high-pressure second set. Eala has leveled up in every conceivable metric. Her movement on grass has become vastly superior to her movement on the hard courts. The naturally low bounce of grass actually heavily favors Eala's compact, precise strokes, allowing her to brilliantly use her opponent's massive pace against them. Furthermore, Eala's serve, which was heavily exploited by Noskova previously, has significantly improved. She is hitting her spots with far greater accuracy and utilizing slice out wide to open up the court. But the biggest difference, the absolute game changer that makes this match completely unpredictable, is Eala's mindset. When you string together consecutive victories against a grass court specialist, a reigning Wimbledon champion, and a legendary top 5 veteran, you build an impenetrable armor of self-belief. Eala knows exactly what happened in Indian Wells. She remembers the bitter taste of that 6-0 set, and you can absolutely guarantee that she has been waiting, praying for this exact moment. This is her shot at ultimate redemption. This is her golden opportunity to look Linda Noskova dead in the eye and prove that the loss in California was an anomaly, a bad day at the office, and not a true reflection of their respective talents. The tactical battle in this semifinal is going to be a fascinating, brutal masterclass in contrasting styles. The match will essentially be decided by one massive collision. Alexandra Eala's rapidly improving return to serve versus Linda Noskova's devastating first serve. As we saw during the Badosa massacre, when Noskova consistently lands her first serve, the point is practically over before it begins. She hits her spots flawlessly and immediately looks for the aggressive +1 forehand to end the rally. However, Alexandra Eala has firmly established herself this week as one of the absolute elite returners currently operating on the WTA Tour. Her uncanny ability to read the serve early, block the ball back deep into the opponent's feet, and instantly reset the point completely neutralizes the very foundation of Noskova's game. If Eala can consistently make Noskova play a third, fourth, and fifth shot, the entire dynamic of the match flips on its head. The longer the rally goes, the more the percentages heavily favor Eala's superior footwork, her sharp left-handed angles, and her ability to construct points rather than just trying to end them in two swings. Furthermore, Eala has to aggressively protect her second serve. In Indian Wells, Noskova attacked Eala's second serve with zero hesitation, stepping feet inside the baseline and crushing returns for clean winners. On a slick grass court, a weak, loopy second serve is an absolute death sentence against a player of Noskova's caliber. Eala must maintain an incredibly high first serve percentage to survive, and when she is forced to hit a second serve, she needs to use heavy, biting spin, jam the ball deep into Noskova's body, and prevent the Czech powerhouse from taking full, aggressive, free swings. Eala cannot, under any circumstances, allow Noskova to set her feet and dictate play from the dead center of the court. She has to use her heavy topspin forehand to violently push Noskova off the baseline, and then utilize her lethal backhand down the line to expose the open court when Noskova is scrambling. But beyond the tactics, beyond the statistics, and beyond the X's and O's, this match is going to be an absolute, brutal psychological war. Linda Noskova will strut onto that court expecting to win. She knows she possesses the raw power to physically overwhelm Eala, and she knows she holds a massive psychological trump card of that 6-2, 6-0 thrashing. Noskova's game plan will be to assert absolute dominance from the very first game, hitting huge returns, serving bombs, and try to rapidly recreate that feeling of total helplessness that Eala experienced in March. Noskova wants to break Eala's spirit before Eala can even find her footing. But Alexandra Eala is stepping onto the Steffi Graf Stadium today enveloped in the undeniable aura of a giant slayer. She is playing with absolutely house money. She has nothing to lose and the entire world to gain. She is carrying the immense, unstoppable momentum of 3 consecutive, career-defining victories. If Eala can simply withstand the initial, violent onslaught from Noskova in the first few games, if she can hold her serve early and show Noskova that the heavy ground strokes that work so perfectly in Indian Wells are now coming right back at her with interest on the Berlin grass, the immense pressure will instantly shift to the Czech side of the net. Noskova is not accustomed to being effectively counterpunched. If Eala turns this into a highly physical, grueling, athletic battle of attrition, making Noskova hit an extra ball on every single point, the panic will inevitably start to set in for the young Czech star. This is exactly why the entire Czech tennis community is on absolute edge. They know deeply that Linda Noskova is an incredible generational talent, a future top 5 player without a shadow of a doubt. But they also recognize the terrifying, undeniable reality staring them in the face. Alexandra Eala is currently playing like a woman possessed by destiny. Eala is not just playing for WTA ranking points or tournament prize money this week. She is playing with fierce, burning desire to establish her own permanent legacy in the sport. She is showing the entire world that a player from the Philippines, a country not traditionally known for producing grass court phenoms, can step onto the traditional European lawns and absolutely dominate the establishment. She is violently rewriting the narrative, and she is doing it with a calm smile on her face and an absolute, ruthless killer instinct in her eyes. Just imagine the scene at the Steffi Graf Stadium as these two walk out. The pristine green grass, the packed-out, electrifying stands, the palpable tension thick enough to cut with a knife. On one side of the net, the towering, powerful, stoic Linda Noskova, representing the immense, historical weight of Czech tennis pedigree. On the other side, the dynamic, lightning-fast, incredibly intelligent Alexandra Eala, carrying the unprecedented, magical momentum of her breathtaking giant-killing run. It is the ultimate clash of styles. It is raw, unadulterated power versus surgical precision. It is relentless, first strike offense versus impenetrable, counterpunching defense. It is a deeply established European tennis machinery taking on a rising, unstoppable force from Southeast Asia. For Alexandra Eala, securing a victory today would not just be a win. It would be the absolute crowning achievement of her young career thus far, reaching the final of a prestigious WTA 500 event on grass, successfully defeating 3 top 10 caliber players, and simultaneously avenging the most brutal, humiliating loss of her year in the process, would catapult her rankings, her global profile, and her internal confidence straight into the stratosphere. It would completely solidify her status not just as a highly promising future star, but as a current, bona fide elite player who is absolutely capable of winning major Grand Slam titles right now. It would be a monumental, historic day for Philippine sports, inspiring an entirely new generation of athletes to genuinely believe that they can step onto the biggest stages and defeat the absolute best in the world. Conversely, for Linda Noskova, a victory today is a strictly necessary step to prove that she is the undisputed alpha leader of this new generation of tennis players. She drastically needs to show the world that she can handle an opponent who is playing completely out of her mind, adapt her rigid game plan when her sheer baseline power is effectively neutralized, and back up the massive, heavy expectations that have been placed squarely on her shoulders by the Czech Tennis Federation. Suffering a loss to Eala today, especially after executing that dominant, flawless win in Indian Wells just months prior, would be a massive, incredibly sobering reality check that would send Noskova back to the drawing board just days before Wimbledon begins. This, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly what makes professional tennis the most beautiful, dramatic, and brutal sport in the entire world. When the umpire calls time, it all ultimately comes down to 2 isolated players, a net dividing them, and the infinite, complex space between their ears. There is no coaching staff to hide behind on the court, no teammates to pass the ball to, and no clock to run out when you are in trouble. You have to physically and mentally find a way to win the last point. Alexandra Eala has miraculously found that way all week long against the absolute toughest competition imaginable. Linda Noskova has blasted her way through the draw with terrifying, robotic ease. When these 2 wildly different, fiercely movable forces finally collide, the absolute impact will be felt across the entire global sporting landscape. The grand stage is set. The history is heavily written. The tension in the air is almost unbearable. Can Alexandra Eala successfully complete the ultimate storybook revenge mission and pull off one of the most spectacular, unpredictable tournament runs in recent WTA memory? Or will Linda Noskova violently reinforce her dominance, silence all the critics, and powerfully punch her ticket to the Berlin Open final? We are merely hours away from finding out, and it promises to be an absolute, undeniable classic that we will be talking about for years. Thank you so much for joining me for this incredibly extensive, deep dive preview of what is, without a doubt, the most highly anticipated match of the entire tournament. If you truly enjoyed this granular level of detailed analysis, if you live for the drama, the deep tactical breakdowns, and the incredible human storylines that make the sport of tennis so uniquely special, please make sure to absolutely smash that like button right now. It is the single best way to help the channel grow, and it lets me know definitively that you want more of these massive, in-depth documentary-style breakdowns for the biggest matches on tour. I need to hear from you right now, so drop a comment down below and give me your official, locked-in prediction. Do you genuinely think Alexandra Eala's phenomenal returning, her superior court craft, and her immense wave of momentum will be enough to completely neutralize Noskova's terrifying power? Or do you think the Czech star will step out there, coldly repeat her dominant Indian Wells performance, and serve her way effortlessly into the final? I want to read your exact score predictions, your tactical theories, and I want to know exactly who you are rooting for in this epic, high-stakes clash. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never, ever miss an update from this channel. We're going to be extensively covering the immediate fallout from this massive semifinal, breaking down the grand final of the Berlin Open, and bringing you the absolute most comprehensive, detailed tennis coverage all the way through the grueling remainder of the grass court season and straight into the historic gates of Wimbledon. The entire global tennis landscape is drastically shifting right before our eyes. Brilliant new superstars are being born on these courts, and intense, bitter old rivalries are being fiercely reignited. You absolutely do not want to miss a single, solitary moment of the incredible action we have coming up. Until next time, settle in, enjoy the absolutely incredible tennis on display today. Appreciate the sheer, unadulterated brilliance of these two phenomenal young athletes pushing each other to the absolute limit. And I will see you all in the very next video.